and today I'm going to return to my appreciation of the Steve Miller Band, the early years. For those of you who are new, this is part two. I will suggest you check out part one, where I go into the beginnings, the evolutions of the band, and the first two albums that were released in 1968. In this video, I'm going to look at the recorded material from 1969, another two albums, plus a dip into 1970 for his album number 5, which was basically the starting point of my love for this particular band. But let's go back first to the third album, blasting out of the stereo speakers in the summer of 1969. The album was titled Brave New World. I'm not sure it had much to do with Aldous Huxley's fiction novel, but it certainly rocked harder than any album up to that point. And from the storm of the lifting title track to the final track, My Dark Hour, featuring one Paul McCartney, who's credited as Paul Ramon, this album really is a class act. Steve Miller's guitar playing is very much the central focus of this album, and it's absolutely superb, blazing across the whole affair, and it's much more prominent than perhaps on any other release in his career, and his career has been lengthy, and many of the songs have a power trio feel to them. In addition to the fine guitar work, though, Miller's vocals are strong here as well. Steve Miller shapes the blues, psychedelia, sound effects, sweet multi-track vocal harmonies, and guitar-driven hard rock into one cohesive musical statement with this release. Through the track lists, opens up with the title track, as I mentioned, a shuffling rhythm coupled with some lead vocals and lots of mellow guitar. It's very atmospheric, very spacious, and that sort of retained from the earlier albums. Track 2's a celebration song. It's got a sliding bass line, sha la 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 la, busy drumming, and the guitar once again it stands out in this track. Albeit it's a bit laid back in the mix, it has to be said. Next up, track 3, Can't Hear Your Daddy's Heart, is an extremely fast-paced. Is there a few of the tracks I thought on Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix resembles, I say. Miller's guitar style is to an extent not really the same as Jimmy's, although the guitar is charged up a bit, and he's also started to get into double picking. So to 4, Got Love Cause You Need the Blues. In the harmonica steps here, I like the rhythmic chords which push the pace before an exuberant Miller solo jettisons us forward briefly, and then the harmonica bosses again, and there's a spoken word narrative that slots in somewhere. Right, so let's move on now, and the next track is A Cow, and Hendrix certainly has an influence on this intro. Nicky Hopkins' distinctive piano style throughout this track. Hopkins' piano coda is worth the price of this album on its own. I like Steve's vocals as well, fiery and memorable. Seasons follows. It's co-written by Ben Sidran, the keyboard player. It's got a lengthy space-like feel to it. It's a ballad, slow-paced. And then probably the most famous track on here, Space Cowboy, rock and roll, certainly. Steve is great at these fast-paced live festival type songs, and this touch on the basses, including the so outro here. To LT's Night Dream, some slide guitar featured here, and blues lovers will dream with those rich harmonies. And then to the final track, as mentioned earlier, My Dark Hour. The bass, courtesy of Macca, is distinctive. Steve opens his shoulders on lead guitar here, and the vocal, both lead and backing, do a great job meshing together. And the guitar, once again, a star, with instrumental licks. So that's my take on the Space Cowboy, the third album, Brave New World. 5, I'd say this is the one I least like, although we are really being quite pedantic. Miller, once again, brought out another album, and it was called Your Saving Grace. It has to be said that Glyn Johns involved on these albums, as he was the first two, and he's done a pretty good job, it has to be said. This album, more earthy type of songs, Sidran and Hopkins on keyboards, combining as they did on Brave New World. And there's a couple of distinct blues originals. The up-tempo and gospel sounding Don't Let Nobody Turn You Round, and an arrangement of Motherless Children, written by Blind Willie Johnson back in 1927. And this song was also covered by one Eric Clapton a little bit later. And I'm now going to go through some of the tracks in more detail. Opens up with a cracker, Little Girl, with some funky love. The opening riff and chords, simplicity is certainly rewarding, and it's got a lovely separation of sound via Johns, and a hot, snappy solo from Steve. Up to track 2, Just a Passing Fancy and a Midnight Dream, co-written by Sidran. It chugs out of the blues station. Miller's vocals lustfully oozing emotions, and some good piano from Sidran on this. Number 3 is a favourite of mine, Don't Let Nobody Turn You Round, and it's an up-tempo gospel rousing blues, high energy sound. I love it, and the solo that Miller puts together here certainly uses most of the fretboard. And then to track 4, Baby's House. This is a lengthy piece, nearly 9 minutes, and it's co-written by Nicky Hopkins. It's elegantly pensive, as one reviewer described, but it certainly has a majestic church-like feel, although the grand piano by Hopkins is very striking. It's mood-driven, and there's some neat harmonies, but at 9 minutes it's a little bit over the top, it has to be said. The second side, which kicks off with that Motherless Children, very traditionally arranged by Miller. It's got some spacey guitar, very, very slow, keyboards very indulgent and has a psychedelic feel to it. And I'm going to take the opportunity of going through the lyrics on this one. Not particularly riveting, but I think it captures possibly what was happening in 1927 when Blind Willie Johnson wrote it. Motherless children have a hard time when their mother's dead. Motherless children have a hard time when their mother's dead. See them wander from door to door. Lord, they don't got no place to go. Nobody love you like your mother can. When your mother's dead, father will do the best he can, but some things your father can't understand. Nobody loves you like your mother can. When your mother's dead, Lord, nobody loves you like your mother can. When your mother's dead, Lord, nobody loves you like your mother can. When your mother's dead, sister will do the best. When your mother's dead, nobody loves you like a mother can. And on and on. Okay, you get the gist. And clearly this was an issue in the black community the African American community way back when. Okay, let's move on then. Track 6 is called The Last Wombat in Mecca. It's written by Lonnie Turner, who's on bass here, but some really excellent slide guitar on this album, and it's got a traditional blues beat. Davis on lead vocals, it has to be said, and it quickens into rhythm pulses that I do like. Next up is Feel So Glad, and this is over 5 minutes. It's very much a laid-back blues with inspired tinkling piano by Hopkins. It's my favourite on this album, with some standout guitar playing by Miller, and his vocals are dreamy and romantically soulful. It grows towards a powerful finale. And then we reach the climax. The title track brings the album to a close. This is written by the drummer Tim Davis, and he's on vocals. The organ takes the lead here, Idran showing his virtuosity, and it's a nice closer. So, as I mentioned, let's go through quickly the personnel. There will be a slide so you can look at this, as there will be a lyric sheet to that Mother's Children, sorry. Steve Miller, guitar and lead vocals on harmonica. Lonnie Turner plays bass guitar, and he also dips in with a little bit of rhythm guitar and backing vocals. Ben Sidran's on organ and electric piano, and Nicky Hopkins plays grand piano on tracks 4 and 7, and then Tim Davis on drums, backing and lead vocals. Okay, so that's the 4th album out of the way, and that completes the releases in 1969. Moved now to the last the last album in this video that I want to consider, and that was the 1970 release, number 5. And this was the first Steve Miller Band album that I bought. I quickly went back and grabbed the 68 albums, it has to be said, and the 69 albums followed after that. But this is the one that I fell in love with, basically. Steve Miller on guitar, vocals, bass and piano. Lonnie Turner on bass. They added Bobby Winkleman on bass guitar and vocals as well. Sidran and Hopkins were retained on keyboards, as was Davis on drums. And there were a few additions that chipped in with performances on various tracks. Charlie McCoy, prevalent on harmonica. Lee Michaels was on track 6. Buddy Speaker featured on Going to the Country on fiddle. Wayne Moss on guitar, and Bobby Thompson on banjo. As I say, I'm going to go through briefly the tracks now. Our album opens, and we are offered 3 absolutely tremendous tracks which segue into each other, and they really set up the whole album. And the 3 that really caught my eyes. You listen to these and you feel a summery warm glow. It starts out with Good Morning with spiraling guitar, and it links into a wondrous vocal harmony. It exudes joy and happiness for me. Millie's guitar is at the top of the psychedelic tree here, and a neat hymn-like end to boot. We then segue into I Love You, another rolling acoustic guitar melody that moulds in with the harmonica and those drenched harmonies again. It's a beautiful 2 minutes 49 seconds and reminds me of those feelings back in 1970. And it's got a crunching ending before we go into Going to the Country. Again, the acoustic guitar intro is sublime, and with a blues feel, and the spirited harmonica then is added to the mix, and wow, this does yield a positive emotion. and what fun you get to feel of being in the country, out of the city. This throws in some fiddle and bounces on with some great lead guitar, spearing towards the outro. Absolutely fantastic. If you hear nothing else, I suggest you get to listen to this trio of songs on YouTube. After those three gems, the next track, Hot Chili, is a completely different idea, a Latino trumpet taste to this ditty little song. It's frantic fun, written by drummer Davis, and Mexican food has never tasted so good. Riba, riba, you hear at the end. And then Tokens, also written by Davis, is a fast country rock song. Much more harmonica on this and some nice banjo which strides along with the harmonica. It's absolutely gorgeous. So you take breath then after a tremendous first side and get ready for side two, which begins with Going to Mexico. It's got a throaty rock blues type of feel to it with powerful Miller vocals, and it's very dominant by his vocals. And there's a crunching short guitar solo on top of the keyboard driven riff. Next up is my favourite track on this album. I play it to death. It's called Steve Miller's Midnight Tango, and the tango is perhaps indicative of how it sounds. It's a bit experimental, quite psychedelic, and as suggested, it's dance driven via the tango. Miller's singing is full of seductive charm, and the lounge jazz mood is a cinch for romance. There's a tingling keyboard feel, lush, running right over it, and it's written by Sidran. And then we move on to a complete contrast with the next tracks in Industrial Military Complex Hex. This is a pure rocker, extended guitar work in the mid-section. It's a bit of a weak selection, however, on this album, amidst all those gems. And then we get to the centerpiece on the second side, Jackson Kent Blues. This is a 7-minute effort. Miller really lays his guitar talents on this one, opening his shoulders with Hendrix-like wah-wah guitar in this blues jam. It spirals, it echoes. He's got all the techniques on the guitar to launch the powerful rhythmic blues riff. It's very spacey for sure, maybe a little overindulgent by Miller, but unless of course you're perhaps a little stoned. And then we get the final act, Never Kill Another Man, just 2.5 minutes. It's a string-laden ballad for piano. There's a political message in there about conscientious objectors, which of course reflected the period, the Vietnam War. But by the time the needle lifts up from the vinyl, you realise you've been witnessing a rather special event. This is, as far as I'm concerned, Miller's greatest achievement, and I absolutely love it. I'd just like to go through the lyrics for that final song, my favourite, Steve Miller's Midnight Tango. They're not particularly deep, but they create a mood, as does the music, and I'd like you to listen to it. You have a cup of coffee and another cigarette. You're waiting for your baby, but she hasn't shown yet. And if she doesn't make it, well, you've got no regrets, because you can't win or lose if you ain't made no bets. And then she comes in, walking, looking fine as you please. You want to stop and drop right down on your knees and say, baby, why? You say you never worry because you don't need a home, don't need an address, and don't need a phone. And you don't have to worry about being alone because you can make your music on a 10-cent comb. And then she comes in, walking, looking fine as you please. You want to stop and drop right down on your knees and say, baby, wow. It's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? So anyway, this concludes my second video of the Steve Miller Band, the early years. I am going to go forward with this and move further into the career of Steve Miller because I really have enjoyed rediscovering these classics. But there might be a slight break before I get on to the third video, which looks at album 6 and will take you through to the first big hit. So thanks for listening. I do want to just make a quick point of a shout out for a few channels that have really helped my psychological health in doing this YouTube channel. I do tend to get very down on myself if there appears to be insufficient interest, but these guys have really helped me. The first is Calcio Silver. Thanks, Jeff. I've loved your videos, and I love your support of my videos, and it's a pretty honest exchange about what we feel is good about certain music, and I just hope you continue. You did hint that you might jack it all in. Another is Rob, Let the Music Play. He's from Lancashire, and he's been very kind with his comments about my videos and about the need to perhaps chill out and not get too obsessed with views and subscriptions. Shannon Makes Music. I enjoy her channel immensely. I don't get to her as often as I'd like. James Griffiths, another English lad. I call him a lad because he's younger than me. His brand of music is certainly one arm of what I like, and I enjoy his style, and he is always trying to be descriptive about the music, unlike many channels where I don't learn a thing about albums that I don't know. And Richard McCook, hope you continue in good health, Richard. Your musical taste is very much the same as mine, so thanks a lot. And the Digital Gramophone is a recent one that I've found. A young American. He's certainly 20 years younger than me, but his eclectic mix is very, very encouraging, and he's extremely good at describing the music that he loves, and he also puts together a very clean picture with the information that you need about the album, the title and the tracks, and he's doing a top 200 at the moment, and I'm very, very keyed in to that. So those are a few. Deep Blues Vinyl Guy, like your stuff as well. There are many others that I do like as well, but those are probably the ones that I really look for. AKL Main, I've started to watch his top 5 throughout his year. He is very good, and I like the fact that we can comment and we show a degree of sincerity in our comments. There are others. I will try and put those channels on links in the description, alongside, of course, links to the music on YouTube, and also any other information that comes to mind. So that's it. Bye.